On this Wednesday night, the investigation into the sinking of that super yacht. Why did it capsize so quickly?
We've got this high impact but low probability event.
As 5 bodies are recovered. The showdown to stop a rail shutdown, the deadline to strike a deal.
There has been, I would say, some movement.
And the fears among farmers whose harvest is already underway. Potential conflict of interest, how a federal cabinet minister's former company was awarded a government contract. Global News investigates. And a rare glimpse into the reclusive nation of North Korea.
It's really mind-boggling stuff when you start watching their propaganda.
One Canadian's surprising find while satellite surfing.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Divers searching the wreck of that luxury yacht that sank off Sicily have now called off the search for the night. Bodies of 5 of the 6 missing people have been found. They haven't been formally identified, but among the missing is wealthy British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch, his 18-year-old daughter, and a high-powered lawyer who successfully defended Lynch in a recent U.S. fraud trial. The 56-meter super yacht went down in an intense storm early Monday, while other boats were unscathed. And Italian investigators are looking into why it sank so quickly. Heidi Petracek looks at what factors could have triggered a catastrophic chain of events.
Wednesday was a grim day of discovery with 5 bodies found by specialized divers from inside the sunken luxury yacht, the Bayesian. The desperate search began soon after the vessel sank early Monday, 50 meters deep. The bodies located Wednesday haven't been officially identified. There are reports 2 are British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter. The other 2 remain unidentified, and 1 person is still unaccounted for. The first confirmed victim was found Monday, Canadian-born Ricaldo Thomas, the ship's chef, remembered by family.
Always wearing a beautiful smile. Always happy to be around people.
This whole incident is, I think, unprecedented.
The world wondering what went wrong. Just how did such a large vessel moored during a fierce pre-dawn storm capsize?
If the boat wasn't completely watertight at the deck, you'd have flooding going in, and it wouldn't take long for the boat to lose its stability.
Italian officials believe the storm may have generated a tornado on the water. Witnesses say the ship went under in minutes.
It's what I would class as like a black swan event. So we've got this high impact but low probability event.
This is lead down here.
This Canadian naval architect says the Bayesian likely had a retractable keel much larger than this one. Down, it provides stability, but it would typically be retracted in port.
They would be able to pull that keel up into the hull, and but as they raise it, it's a weight going up in the vessel, so it reduces stability.
One of the many factors that could have contributed to the disaster, all likely haunting the 15 passengers who managed to survive. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Canada's 2 main railway companies are just hours away from an unprecedented labour stoppage that will set off a damaging domino effect on the Canadian economy. Canadian National Railway and Canadian Pacific Kansas City have expansive networks. They move roughly $1 billion worth of goods every day. They employ about 9,000 unionized railway workers. And if a deal is not reached, they will be off the job as of 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, Thursday. The Prime Minister is urging both sides to avoid that worst-case scenario and has rejected calls from multiple business groups to intervene. Mackenzie Gray reports on the pressure to get a deal done.
Freight across the country could be just hours away from a standstill.
There has been, I would say, some movement, but both parties remain apart on the key issues.
The union, representing over 9,000 employees from both CN and CP railways, still can't agree on scheduling issues, safety concerns, and a forced relocation plan proposed by CN, making it increasingly likely Canada could be headed for a major economic shutdown at 12:01 Thursday morning.
It is totally unacceptable for us as a country to sabotage ourselves right now.
Sabotage that the federal government could stop. Labour Minister Steve McKinnon has rejected requests from the railways for binding arbitration and won't speculate on the potential for back-to-work legislation.
I'm not going to get into those kinds of what-ifs, but Parliament isn't sitting. and Parliament is not something that can be recalled on a dime.
McKinnon, who met with union and CP representatives today, does not seem optimistic of a last-second compromise.
I think it's fair to say there are significant issues that remain to be resolved.
A sentiment displayed through the party's public barbs. CN saying tonight the Teamsters have shown an inability or unwillingness to negotiate seriously.
That is a lie. That is indicative of the type of attitude this company has had since the very beginning.
If a last-second deal can't be reached, over $1 billion worth of goods a day would be stuck. And potentially the most concerning shortage, chlorine, used to disinfect drinking water and moved almost exclusively by rail.
If this disruption were to last for more than a few weeks, it could lead to things like, water restrictions.
While rail stoppages have happened before, Donna, CN and CP have never both shut down at the same time, making Thursday's potential stoppage the first of its kind in over 100 years.
All right, Mackenzie in Ottawa, thanks. Canadian farmers are at the mercy of the weather and heavily reliant on railways. Farmers don't get paid if their product doesn't get to market, and as the harvest gets underway, they are bracing for a looming labor stoppage. Heather Yourex-West has been talking to farmers about what's at stake.
It's already harvest time in southern Alberta, and despite a hot and dry season, the crops this year are looking good.
We're about a third done. We're just doing some malt barley today.
But a great growing season could go to waste if the end product has no place to go.
We've already seen a drop in some of our commodity prices, some as much as 10% in the last week, due to elevators just don't want the grain. They've already stopped shipping. They've already stopped taking grain.
Agriculture in Canada is a $150 billion a year industry, so there is a lot of money at stake from these fields. A rail strike could cost this one southern Alberta farm as much as $1 million in lost revenue.
Grain growers in Canada is expecting the delay to cost somewhere in the realm of $43 million a day in the month of August, and that number jumps to $50 million a day in September.
That's because there is no plan B for farmers. In a country as big as this one, shipping by train is the only way to go.
It's reliant on the rail. Here in Saskatchewan, absolutely, right? We're in the middle of a province, equidistance from either port. We can't truck it to port. That's days.
Producers are now scrambling to find storage options. But with crops coming off the field now, elevators will soon be full. And it's not just grain growers facing potential impacts.
No grain coming down to the coast means we're going to end up with a shortage of feed for everything from dog food, cat food, poultry, hogs, and dairy farms as well.
It goes beyond frustration. This is out of control.
U.S. ag groups think so too. On Tuesday, they sent the Prime Minister a letter urging him, for the sake of supply chain and food security, to step in before rail service is shut down. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, near Claresholm, Alberta.
Police across Canada are investigating bomb threats sent to more than 100 Jewish organizations early this morning. Synagogues, Jewish community centers, and some hospitals received the same chilling email threatening to carry out attacks. No explosives have been found, but as Phil Carpenter reports, it is the latest in a string of anti-Semitic incidents in Canada this year.
Rabbi Reuben Pupko's synagogue in Côte Saint-Luc was one of about 24 institutions in Montreal to get worrisome messages early Wednesday morning.
Obviously, it's startling to wake up to a bomb threat in your synagogue, obviously.
Montreal police say several 911 calls started coming in just after 7 a.m. about threatening emails being sent to a number of Jewish organizations across the city.
However, we understood very quickly that this was a threat that had gone out to over 100 synagogues across Canada and a couple dozen here in Montreal.
In one of the emails obtained by Global News, the threat reads in part, "We placed many explosives inside your building. They're placed in black backpacks. The bombs are set to go off in a few hours." It ends with a demand to give the name of the group to media outlets. Global News is not revealing the name of the group.
This was simply an attempt to frighten people. It was this attempt to sabotage normal Jewish life, to scare people away, and in that they did not succeed.
These threats come on the heels of a number of incidents targeting Jewish organizations across the country. Schools in both Montreal and Toronto were targeted by gunfire earlier this year. In 2023, shots were fired at 2 Montreal schools and a synagogue was firebombed. Both police and Jewish groups say incidents targeting Canada's Jewish community have risen.
The annual audit of anti-Semitic incidents that was issued for 2023 showed a 109% increase over 2022. And I'm afraid to say 2024 is going to eclipse that somber number.
Politicians of all stripes denounced Wednesday's threats while reassuring the Jewish community.
Their community is safe. The police is doing its job. We still have information with the different police corps like our CMP, and we're working on these different situations right now.
Jewish leaders say in the wake of the threats, it's important for all Canadians to stand against hate.
Because I think that part of the intention of something hateful like this is to isolate individuals and to isolate communities, and we're better than that.
The RCMP has taken over the investigation. Phil Carpenter, Global News, Montreal.
In the Middle East, the militant group Hezbollah launched a rocket and drone attack from Lebanon into northern Israel. The assault sparked fires in homes in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. At least one person was injured. In retaliation, Israel bombed Hezbollah's weapons storage facilities in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah says its attack was in response to an Israeli strike deep into Lebanon last night. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Israel's prime minister today about diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions. Star power at the Democratic National Convention coming up. The big names slated to hit the stage tonight. And in Chicago, the Democratic National Convention is framing the presidential campaign as a fight for American freedoms. The party's trying to define Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump as stale, self-interested, and a threat to democracy. Tonight, the vice presidential Democratic hopeful, Tim Walz, will take to the stage along with some Democratic heavy hitters like former President Bill Clinton, who accepted the party's nomination on the same stage in 1996. Jackson Prosco is at the convention in Chicago. Jackson, who are some of the other big names appearing there tonight?
Well, Donna, taking to the stage tonight include acts like John Legend and Stevie Wonder, Oprah Winfrey among them as well. That star power, though, is only surpassed perhaps by the excitement of the delegates. But tonight they're being warned they can't get complacent in these final few weeks of campaigning.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president.
There's an air of giddy excitement at the DNC.
We're from Jersey, baby, and you're not.
A sense that anything is possible with Kamala Harris as the nominee.
She is one of the most qualified people ever to seek the office of the presidency.
To understand just how much this party has changed in 1 month, you have to talk to the people who pushed for that change.
We're figuring it out darn right, and it's magical.
Congressman Dean Phillips ran a lonely primary campaign against Joe Biden last year. He was among the first Democrats to go public, warning the president was too old and too frail to take on Donald Trump again.
Many of us thought we'd be attending a funeral, essentially, this week, and it turned into a birth.
One example, there are Republicans in the room supporting Harris, including Donald Trump's former press secretary, who spoke Tuesday night.
I love my country more than my party.
It's extraordinary. I mean, when in recent American political history have you had leading figures in the opposite party come to our convention to support our nominees?
Yet Democrats seem to realize that joy will only carry them so far. The convention will shift to a more somber tone Wednesday, focusing on the dangers of a second Trump administration.
We're willing to risk our lives!
And concerns of another attack like January 6th. Police officer Daniel Hodges was injured defending the Capitol that day.
Partisanship is at an extreme high these days.
He came to the DNC with a warning that Democrats can't let their excitement overshadow the very serious issues on the ballot this November.
I want people to know that democracy is on the line, that January 6th wasn't a conspiracy. It's exactly what it looked like, and it can happen again.
And tonight, of course, is a major test for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as he accepts the vice presidential nomination, the first real national scrutiny he's faced since joining the ticket. Tomorrow brings the main event with that acceptance speech by Vice President Kamala Harris as she formally accepts the presidential nomination. Donna?
Okay, Jackson in Chicago tonight. Thanks. Former President Donald Trump was at an outdoor rally in North Carolina today. This time Trump spoke from behind bulletproof glass. The Secret Service added the security after a gunman fired at Trump at an outdoor rally in July. Trump and his running mate claim they would be better for the country on issues including immigration, the economy, and defense. In Romania, police have raided the home of controversial online media influencer Andrew Tate. It's part of an investigation into new allegations against him: human trafficking, sexual intercourse with a minor, and money laundering. Tate, a self-described misogynist, has millions of followers. The 37-year-old, along with his brother and 2 Romanian women, are already awaiting trial for rape, human trafficking, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women. A federal cabinet minister under scrutiny. Coming up, the questions as to whether Randy Boissonnault may have broken conflict of interest laws. There are questions tonight about a federal cabinet minister potentially breaching ethics rules. Global News has found Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault's former company was awarded a federal contract earlier this year while he was still in office and held shares in the company. Krista Hesse has been investigating Boissonnault's business dealings. Krista.
Donna, we've learned that Global Health Imports, a medical supply company Boissonnault co-founded, received a contract from Elections Canada in January. At the time, Boissonnault owned a 50% stake in the business. Generally, ethics rules allow ministers to have shares in private companies as long as those companies do not obtain federal contracts.
Section 13 sub 2 says clearly.
Public law expert Ian Stedman told Global News the minister appears to be in violation of the Conflict of Interest Act, but said ultimately it is up to the interpretation of Canada's Ethics Commissioner.
If it does apply, then I think you have a real conundrum for Mr. Boissonnault.
The Act contains an exemption to this rule if the Ethics Commissioner decides the contract or interest is unlikely to affect the minister's official duties. The Commissioner's office said it could not comment on Global News' findings due to confidentiality.
Boissonnault's office said he was not involved with this contract and had no knowledge that Global Health Imports, or GHI, had bid on it, adding that the minister stepped down from any operational role with GHI after his election in 2021 and has not been involved with any contracts obtained by GHI since then. His office argued the exemption should apply. Elections Canada awarded GHI a $28,000 contract to supply disposable gloves. The contract is active, Elections Canada said, but no orders or payments have been made.
Minister Boissonnault doesn't himself have to receive the benefit, but the corporation that he has an interest in has to benefit.
Stedman says the benefit could simply be the contract itself.
I wrote to Mr. Boissonnault again yesterday.
After deciding not to launch a formal investigation into Boissonnault in June, 2 weeks ago, Canada's Ethics Commissioner said he is reopening his case file over new texts Boissonnault's former business partner sent in 2022, citing communications with someone named Randy. Both Boissonnault and his business partner deny Boissonnault is the Randy in the texts.
You know, that business is rewarded with.
Tory ethics critic Michael Barrett called on the Ethics Commissioner to investigate the contract.
Randy Boissonnault shouldn't be serving in the federal cabinet if he's found guilty of breaking Canada's ethics laws.
Boissonnault surrendered his shares in GHI in June after Global News reported on the text messages and lawsuits against the company. Courts have ordered GHI to pay 6 companies nearly $8 million to date. None of the lawsuits name Boissonnault, and he maintains he has had nothing to do with the company since he was re-elected. Donna?
Krista Hesse in Toronto, thanks. Tuning into Another World next, how a Canadian accidentally tapped into North Korean state TV. North Korea is one of the most isolated and secretive countries in the world, and it's selective about what it chooses to show outsiders. So imagine the surprise of an Ontario man who stumbled on a live feed of North Korean state television. Jeff Semple talked to him about how he found it and what he saw.
To watch the Olympics, this broadcast engineer used his impressive backyard satellite to scan the airwaves for sports channels and stumbled upon a peculiar signal.
I saw Pyongyang on it, and that piqued my curiosity. It was like, is this really coming out of North Korea.
Turns out it really was. Peter Fairley had inadvertently tapped into North Korean state TV. He started watching and couldn't stop.
It's really mind-boggling stuff when you start watching their propaganda.
The morning broadcast begins with the national anthem and tributes to North Korea's former rulers. There are cartoons, news programs praising the regime, and of course, the star of the show. Kim Jong-un is presented as a god, provoking fan frenzies reminiscent of Taylor Swift. A man of the people, even braving floodwaters, narrowly dodging tree branches to rescue his citizens. Fairley posted the video clips on YouTube, where they've received millions of views.
What do you make of the reaction?
People have a weird curiosity about what's going on in North Korea.
I think it's fascinating. It provides a rare glimpse in...
This expert says North Korean TV is rarely accessible from the outside, and almost nothing gets in. North Koreans caught watching foreign programming are sent to labor camps or even executed.
Controlling the public's mind has been the fundamental focus of the regime. They are massively brainwashed from kindergarten onwards, and they are exposed to some of the most complex propaganda campaigns that we have ever seen in human history.
A rare window into that unparalleled propaganda machine through this suburban Ontario backyard. Jeff Semple, Global News, Mississauga, Ontario.
That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Ulukaktuk, Northwest Territories. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. I will be off for a little bit, and I will see you again in September. Bye-bye.